Hello, guys. Hello, guests. How are you
Guests of the
doing?
bar.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey,
Right.
how is everyone doing? That was quite a random start to this one, but
It was, wasn't
we'll go
it?
with it.
That's
We'll
right.
go with
But
it.
it's the photography bar. It's the
It
First
is,
photography
orders.
yeah.
bar.
Order
That's
up.
right. Yeah. First orders. You know what? We're going to jump straight into it. Okay. No messing around. No long intros. It's doing a lot of podcasts. You know what they say the huge thing: subscribe to this and subscribe to that. You all know that you need to subscribe.
Yeah, do
Right?
subscribe to our stuff though.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm going to kick off straight away with something, and both of you are going to have an opinion on this. And it's to do with event photographers and, uh, and whether you should use a flash at an
Yeah.
event or not. Now, I know you're going to
Mm.
say, well, it depends what the lighting is. It depends
Yeah.
what situation you're in. Should you use flash or should you not use flash? But I know, Mark, you and I, it's been some events, and I'll just say, just do it without flash. And you say, no, do it with
No, do it
flash.
with Flash. No.
So there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's open. The door is open.
the door
Oh,
is open.
oh,
Okay.
blimey.
Okay. Well, the reason I like Flash, I mean, I guess you are right. It does depend on situation, blah, 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 blah. But if you're taking pictures of people, I like to have catch lights in the eyes for starters. I also like that sometimes when you have got just natural light, it can be quite dark in the eyes, which I like to fill in. Maybe that's the studio photographer in me, I don't know. Um, but I do like, I mean, when I'm doing shooting weddings, Cam just said, "Why are you using a flash for that?" I says, "Well, I just think the overall aesthetic is better." But there we go.
Okay. That's fair enough, Robert.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both on this, really. I have to say, I was surprised, Cam, to realize recently when you've moved away from the Flash because you used to be a real, what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of big fan of it. That's not what I'm looking for, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You were a big Flash user many years ago, and you have taken a bit of a 180, not in a bad way, but you just had a bit of a change of stance on that. But personally, I do think that if the situation's right, you do obviously get that cleaner, more natural light. And I think when you can do it and you still balance it right and you get the atmosphere and the ambient light with it as well, it's always a better quality of light than just ramping up the ISO. But I
Yeah.
suppose sometimes in a needs must situation and you want to go for perhaps a slightly less kind of in your face approach, if you think flash is that, then you've got the options now with ISO capabilities and most modern cameras that you don't necessarily have to have the flash, but I do think you undoubtedly get the better quality of light and image clarity 100% every time with it.
And I think that's your general argument when we have this conversation, isn't it, Cam? It's like, but these cameras are so good now at higher ISOs. You don't need the flash.
I know. Well, another
You
reason why
can't
I'm
change
asking.
shadows on the face, though, can you? That's the thing. No matter how high the ISO goes.
Exactly. And you can't
Yeah,
put catch lights in the eyes either.
that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I asked this question was because I do get quite a lot of people saying to me about Flash, and oh, can you tell us a little bit about Flash? Some of the students that I work with, and because I find that a lot of people that come onto the photography courses, they've got cameras that have got the little built-in pop-up flash. And there's a lot of cameras that don't. And I try to explain to people the more money you spend on a camera, the less chances are of having that little built-in pop-up flash. Because that built-in pop-up flash is pretty useless, really.
It's
It's never
awful.
used, and they're not used by a professional. So that's the first thing. So when we're talking about do you use flash, it's not the little flash that pops up on
Could you imagine using
automatically on your
that
camera.
on a
Yeah,
job?
No, no.
Let me get my flash ready, guys.
Yeah.
but you see, I think a lot of people do. A
Bing.
lot of, yeah, I think a lot of people do that. And I'm not talking about professionals. I'm talking about sort of amateurs who think, right, I'm going to have a go at event photography and think, okay, well, I've got the flash and the flash pops up, I'll use it. Because everyone's first instinct is it's a bit dark in here, I need flash. Just true when we all started out in photography. That's probably what we did. But we're talking about the dedicated flash guns, the speed lights that you attach to the top of your camera onto the hot shoe, the little metal plate that sits on the top of your camera. And first of all, you've got to learn how to use that and how to balance the light. And you because you can pick up some fantastic all the atmosphere at an event, whether you use flash or whether you don't use flash.
Mm.
And I totally agree with you. You do get those catch lights. You get a brighter image. There's just something about an image that's shot with flash, but it's knowing how to use it properly. And I think also what I'm saying is that when you don't use flash, you don't have to use flash for a lot of events because you can whack that ISO up. And particularly if you've got a lens that opens up to say 2.8, then you've got a lot of play and you can get great pictures and really capture the feel of the atmosphere. And
do you think really then,
thing.
just to interject a little bit, it comes down to really knowing what you're doing with the camera and with the flash? Because if you can't just whack a flash on, sure, you could put it into like ETTL and things like that to kind of take a lot of the manual work out of it still, but you still really got to know how you're going to balance that light with the ISO to capture the ambient and all that. So it's not just a case of sticking a flash on and jobs are good in. So you need to know how to use the flash to get the, like we say, Mark, to get that look that you're working towards and that you get rather, versus just putting the ISO up. And because you might not quite know why you're putting the ISO up either, and that sort of thing for some people. So you might on paper be following, I'm using flash, but the pictures still look like they're a deer in the headlights, or you're not bouncing it properly. You're not, I've taken the ISO up to high 2 instead of 6400 or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's only just recently, I think, since I got the mirrorless camera that I stopped using the flash on manual. I used to just always have it on manual. I used to walk into it and go roughly, okay, I need to be on 16th or whatever the measurement is on the flash.
Your eyes would lock in, would they? You'd assess.
Yeah, I go, okay, yeah, roughly I'd know. I mean, I wouldn't be bob on or anything. You'd take a picture, it's a little dark or a little bright, whatever. But roughly you'd be in the area. Because I never used to trust TTL, because when I first started using TTL, it wasn't, well, I didn't think it was that good. But now I do use TTL all the time because it is really good, and obviously with the mirrorless helps you as well. But yeah, absolutely. Sort of second what you say there, Rob. You can't just whack on a flash and hope for it to do your job for you. You kind of do have to know what you're doing. Bouncing flash as well, I think is, even if I was having a conversation with a chap the other day. Even if there isn't a low white ceiling, I would still bounce the flash because it just takes that harshness out of it. So yeah,
I think Robert, you hit the nail on the head. I think, well, we all have in a way, but I think that the main thing that comes out of it is you've got to learn it, haven't you? You can't just think, okay, right, well, I've got this event to go and photograph, and I'm going in there with little to no experience and just winging it, and not really knowing what to do and how to use the light to know how you're going to get the best out of it. I know people look at Instagram and social media and think, and YouTube, and you get the settings off, because this photographer is using this particular setting. You think, right, okay, I'm good to go. But in reality, it doesn't quite work like that, does it? And it's just a simple case. It underlines the fact that you've got to know your equipment and you've got to learn how to use it, and you've got to be able to adapt in whatever situation that you're in. Because if you're an event, and let's just say, whatever it is, say it's a corporate event and they turn the lights right down because, they've got a special presentation, and and you need to shoot pictures of somebody on stage, and they still want crowd and they still want audience reactions, but there's no lights on the audience. What are you going to do? Right?
Well, we've had that many times over the years, haven't we? At, say, a wedding where you get all set up for the first dance, you think you're all good, and then all of a sudden the DJ has a great idea to turn all the lights off, completely throw it, and then you're scrambling. Oh, no, get me the prime, get me the 50.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and in those situations, you have to just be able to just go right into, autopilot and think, okay, no problem, I can do this. Okay, it's not an ideal situation, but I know how to deal with this.
And I think as well, just to add to what you said, Mark, I know we're spending a lot of time on this one now, but it's an interesting one, is you say use TTL now, and I've always used TTL when I do use flash, but you'll always be able to drop back to manual if and when the situation calls. So it comes back to saying, like, really knowing what you're doing on the flash. Someone might get the flash for the first time, have it in manual, and not quite know how the power works. And they might be finding, well, every shot I take is really blown out, and I can't get it to do what I want to do. They might not be aware of TTL, because TTL in itself, it's not an obvious feature. You wouldn't know what it is off the tin unless you looked it up. But it does give you that more automatic reading, obviously. So a lot of people might not even think to put it in TTL. They might be messing around with all the different power settings and not really understanding how that light is actually working. But because you've done that and now you've gone to TTL because you realize it's useful, if the situation called for it and you couldn't bounce it the way you wanted to, you could maybe override it and give it some more power in manual and all that sort of stuff. But you can make that decision, can't you? And it comes back to what you were saying, Cam, about really knowing what you're doing. And you haven't got to be an expert, but just give yourself some understanding, haven't you, on how it works, and there's always a bit of field testing, isn't there? So
I mean, experience is key. I mean, rebounding off walls, rebounding off ceilings, just having it to the side because you've got more light this side. There's a lot.
It's hard work. It's you got to be you really, as an event photographer, you've really got to know what you're doing. And when we say event photographer, that could be anything. That could be a wedding, it could be a birthday party, it could be a corporate presentation, it could be a dinner or something like that. Whatever it could be, it could be the Oscars, right? Any type of event. Okay, and you've got to be able to get into that. Now, the next thing I'm going to go on to is also event related. That's a wedding story. And we've seen it all before, but this was something, Mark, that you sent me.
You sent one of the few places you can't use a flash, by the way.
That's right, Instagram. It was in America, so it was outdoors and it was a wedding. I'm going to relate this not just to weddings, because it could be any type of event, where the vicar turns around and stops the wedding and asks the photographer to leave. The vicar is already in the middle of the vows, and then turns around and says something like, "Can you stop? Can you leave?" He doesn't tell them to move. He doesn't tell them to step to one side. He doesn't tell them to stop. He tells them to actually leave.
Yeah.
Now, well, Mark, you sent us that. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think that there's many thoughts. I mean, one of the things that, as someone who is not affiliated with any particular religion, finds some of this a bit difficult to understand. So, I remember shooting a wedding once. It was one of the first ones I did, and I had a kind of similar interaction. Not the stop leave bit, but at the end, the vicar, the guy, the photographer says something along the lines of, "Look, it's the couple's day. I got to get all these images. They paid for all of this, blah 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 blah." And he turns around and goes, "No, it's not the couple's day. It's God's day," or something along those lines. Now, I've had a vicar say that phrase to me as well.
Did he make you take your Elenchroms down? Take your flights out.
Yeah, they didn't like the 500 lights I put up around there. but no, it was just about but that was the key. When that vicar said it to me, it was in the middle of a negotiation before the event started. So we were like, she was like, "You can only stand there, you can't move, you can't use flash, blah 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 blah. Can I do this? No, you can't. Can I do this? No, you can't." And I went on to say, "Look, we've got to be able to capture something. It's the couple's day," which went on to say, "No, it's God's day." Which, as I say, as a non-religious man, I find that really difficult to understand. But we are in their house, and at the end of the day, we have to abide by their rules. And I am very much of a, I do agree with that. So there's a few things I thought went wrong in this instance, in this video. First off, I thought the vicar was completely over the top. Should have. I mean, we haven't seen any footage beforehand, so maybe this wasn't the first incursion. I don't know. But if it was completely out of order. You can see the bride and groom's expression in it. They're "Oh my word," It's an incredible piece of footage, really, in that respect. But why wasn't this not negotiated before the wedding started? Why didn't the photographer go to the vicar, "Look, what can I and can't I do?" Blah 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 blah. That kind of stuff.
And I suppose that's also where we're only seeing that little snippet, and there may well have been a discussion before, and they may have overstepped their boundaries in the actual ceremony. So it very much paints a picture of the vicar, priest, whatever, being in kind of over the top, if you like. But we don't know quite what the discussion was or what they may have done to make him react that way just before that clip does start. It's perhaps the other way I would come at it. And I know that we've all experienced, like you say, Mark, your example there, and we've had it over the years, haven't we, as well, in different ways. And there was a good one going back quite a few years ago where we always take a very I don't do weddings anymore, but we did always take a fairly non-invasive approach that we can. We tried to be flies on the wall, not noticeable, and we didn't use flash and stuff like that. We didn't walk around. But there was one good moment, Cam, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying this, but the vicar wasn't really happy with our setup for whatever reason, and we played a game, so to speak. We were very polite, very professional still, and he was fine with us. But after having a bit of a moan about us at the start, before he'd even sort of properly met him, he then stopped the bride coming into the church to take pictures on his own phone as she was walking down. Do you remember that, Cam?
I do now. Yeah, I was wondering where this was going. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. And obviously we're not naming anything here. We're not keeping it all.
No.
But yeah, it was just quite a funny moment there where we'd been sort of
Yeah.
on the spot, and then he'd stopped her actually walking down with her father and took pictures on his own phone. So that was just a moment of irony there. Yeah.
Well, we had one where we couldn't be in Vicar's Eye Line or something. Do you remember that one, Cam?
Been all sorts, isn't there?
Yeah. So it was like we'd like almost Call of Duty. We were like behind these pillars, just like taking pictures and then ducking out the way. You know, it was nuts.
So I think, like we've spoken about the vicar and we've spoken about that type of thing, but actually the photographers, and I do get everything as far as, look, it's the bride and groom that have paid for the photographers. It should be up to the bride and groom, but I think a lot of bride and grooms don't actually even know what the photographers are going to do. Now, we've been in a situation many times when we've been at an event where we're not doing the photography, we might be doing the video for it. And again, these could be corporate events, these could be weddings. Let's take weddings as a good example here, though, okay? Because everyone can relate to weddings, whether you've done a photography or not, wedding photography or not, you can just relate to weddings anyway. But what I've found over the years is when I've worked with some other photographers, I think a lot of photographers themselves have been out of order because they first of all, they disregard all the rules. They do think it's all about them. And they're trying to get in and get these, these pictures and trying to get in close and doing all of that and everything, when they could just as easily stand back in one place out of sight, because we do it all the time, and get great pictures. It's about the timing. They don't have to be right up against the vicar's shoulder to get that shot. Sometimes as a photographer, you have to draw back. And I think a lot of the time I find photographers, they make it about themselves, and they might say, well, we're doing it for the bride and groom. But I don't think that's the case. I just don't think they think. They don't respect where they are in a lot of situations. And also they don't turn around and look, are there any other photographers? Is there any video? Is there any professional video that's going on? They just sort of jump in and say, right, I've got to get my shot. It's not just about you as a photographer. As a photographer, I think the best photographers are the ones that work with everyone there on a wedding day or at any event, to be able to say to the event guys, I'm going to stand here. I'm going to do this. Am I going to be in your way? If I'm in your way, tap me on the shoulder. I'll do the same. So you work together as a team. But there's a lot of photographers that just go in just by themselves and don't really give a toss. And then, and I think photographers should be held account for that.
You are right there. I guess the only thing I put a little caveat to is that if the photographer doesn't get the shot, then they're in trouble from their client, which is the bride and groom in this case. Why didn't you get that shot? Well, because that's always one of the first things that the photographer will come under fire. I do agree, though. It should all be discussed beforehand, and the team aspect, the team aspect of it needs to be what it is. And of course, as I said right at the beginning, if you're in someone's house, you have to abide by their rules, and that's the case in the church, isn't it?
I think as well, just to add to that as well, I think you might have been about to say this, Cam, as well, is that sometimes with certain churches or whatever, any venue really, it doesn't have to be a church, does it? I don't suppose we've seen it with registrars over the years. They can be quite firm as well. It just takes one or two people to then ruin it for everyone else. We've had it before where no photos at the front of the church. No, you can have one camera at the back and that's it. Which is not nothing, but it's not amazing either, just to be at the back. And so, like I say, one or two people that just get right in amongst it all. Perhaps they're through the vicar's arms, getting the rings. No, not quite like that, but you know what I mean. We blame, and that does ruin it for everyone else. Then for the few, and it's just the way it is sometimes, isn't it?
You're right. We blame the vicars, don't we? But in actual fact, I do believe it's the photographers that are at fault and have created that situation. I don't think it's the vicars. I do think it's I do think it is the photographers that have created that.
I'm not sure about that. I think it's both. I think the vicars,
both, yeah.
The vicars don't want the photographers there either. Let's get this thing out of the way. There is this religion, it's about religion. It's about God. This isn't about the photographer being there capturing this moment, because it's a business, and there is an element of vicars not liking that. That's where a lot of that comes from. it's not the couple's day, it's God's day. Well, what's that got to do with me being, if I was being a pain in the bum, that's got nothing to do with it, has it?
But also, I
that's
think
just me being disrespectful. If I was being disrespectful, that's got nothing to do with someone saying that to me. So there is an element of both. I'm not disagreeing with what you say there, Cam, because yes, I'm sure there's been many photographers that have taken the mickey. And I don't understand why a photographer want to do that. The last thing I want to be is all the guests looking at me. I find
my
that,
goodness, could you imagine how embarrassing it would be to
Yeah,
have that?
I just
wouldn't it?
don't. Yeah, I just don't understand why people would do that in the first place. But I do find that, because you said registrars are strict. I've never met a strict registrar. Normally they're like, just do whatever. I've never had someone put loads of rules. In fact, I put some of the rules on myself more than they do with the registrars. Actually, it's only the vicars.
It's less common. We haven't had it much with registrars over there, but it has on occasion. There's been one.
Of course, there's going to be one or two.
Yeah, but not enough. I think it's more.
But it's every vicar, isn't it?
Based. Yeah. It's more church. It definitely is 100%. And most of the, like I say, most of the registrars we've experienced have been absolutely fine, I should add. But I think just in this particular case, the importance, like say God's Day and stuff like that, fully respect it, of course.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it should the importance of the day also shouldn't be lost on the vicar as for the bride and groom as well. That shouldn't be lost on them. Yes, it is, they're having a religious ceremony, but the importance of that day is for the couple shouldn't be lost on them. And to interrupt it and now have this viable moment, I have to say, even as like the bride and groom, I wouldn't want to be part of a viral clip going around.
No,
to be honest with
you.
No,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
And you never have this issue in a Sikh temple, though. I'll just throw that one out there.
It is different, isn't it? With different,
But, do you know what I mean?
The other thing I would say is that it's a lot of photographers listening to this probably thinking, well, how do I get around it? And is that when you arrive, let's say, to a church, and let's be honest, the Church of England is the hardest, actually.
It is
when you arrive, is go and speak to the vicar, introduce yourself, ask the photographer
ask the vicar.
And ask the vicar to say, look, do you have any general rules? Can you tell me where I can stand? The bride and groom have asked, they'd really like some pictures from the front. This is what I would like to do. Is this okay with you? Agree it with the vicar.
Absolutely.
Don't just arrive in the church and then just expect to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
If you're in an event, a corporate event, go and speak to the event organizer. Go and speak to the stage people. Go and speak to people to ask them what they're happy for you to do, and for you to openly say, look, this is ideally what I wanted to do. Would you be happy if I do this? And in most cases, it's a two-way thing. They want to work with you, you want to work with them. Don't be that photographer that that just goes in, doesn't talk to anyone, and expects to be able to do what you want to do.
I mean, the thing is, one of the rules of thumb I have is I always think about, do I want to photograph in this place again? And if it's a wedding and it's a local church or something, then generally, yes, you do want to photograph in that place again. So you have to be on.
But
quote,
you still wouldn't
behavior.
Go gung ho though, would you? If you didn't want to go back there again, you still wouldn't want to.
No. But the thing
for a minute
is,
there, it sounded like you were going to say, "Well, if I don't want to come back here again, sod it."
No. No, my point is, generally, you're going to want to photograph there again, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're going to want to be allowed to go back there. You don't want to give up a future job because you've been a dickhead in this one. Do you know what I mean? So always think about that. Apologies for me. I was trying to think of another word, but
you have to put some centers in now, Mark.
Yeah. You'll have to put an E on the thing, won't we?
Yeah. Ooh, we're going PG-13 on.
I think at that point, guys, we're going to take a break. Guys, welcome back. Okay, so if you want a glimpse into where photography is actually heading, Japan is usually the place that gives us the earliest signals every year. And in 2025, the sales data from BCN Japan does exactly that. Which camera brand do you think are number one, guys?
Wow.
That's going to be Sony, Canon, or Nikon, isn't it?
Well, I'll stick with a Canon. I mean, they're just releasing the R6 Mark III. I think their R5s are brilliant. I mean, surely they're the ones that are kicking it out at the moment.
I am a Canon man these days. I have.
Are you?
I am. Yes, I am.
It's a real switch around, isn't it?
I've dabbled with. Well, I tend to follow Cam really, but yeah, I've dabbled in all of these brands.
We've dabbled them all.
Yeah, we have.
We've had our hands on every brand, haven't we, Robert?
Yeah, we have indeed. Yeah, and I tell you what, I really liked. The image quality of the Sony camera is the best, but I prefer the functionality and ergonomics, if you like, of the Canon cameras. And their image quality is still outstanding, of course, as well. But so that's, I haven't really answered the question, have I? I've been a bit on the fence. I'm going to say Sony.
Okay, well, and Sony is the right answer. Sony is number one again. Okay, so they've taken 29.9%, 29.9% of the mirrorless market. Canon then coming at 27.4%, and Nikon a third at 15.5%. And this
is say those again. So Sony's on
Sony's on 29.9%.
Okay.
Canon on 27.4%. Nikon's on 15.5%.
Whoa. Okay. So there's not that big a gap between Canon and Sony then.
No. So if you round it up, so Sony are 30% and Canon are 28%.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
But
so
Nikon are
way behind, aren't they? And this is Sony's third year in a row at the top. So it says it would be very, so anyway, it'd be
correct
very
me if
easy.
I'm wrong. Didn't Canon have Didn't Canon have a little bit of a stronger mirrorless offering with that initial? Obviously Sony led the way with mirrorless for a long time. Just obviously is where they got their good foundation now, and probably still reaping the benefits of that to some degree, I dare say. But Canon came in there, and I don't think Nikon's offering it from the outset was as strong. And I think that could be potentially, I might be wrong on that, but I remember thinking, Cam, at the time, if you recall, that Nikon's offering wasn't as comprehensive, if you like, as Canon's was. They seemed to really increase their product range pretty quickly and lens range.
Nikon did struggle at the beginning of the mirrorless stuff, I seem to remember.
Oh, definitely. They were behind, weren't they? They did catch up. But actually, what I was going to do was I was going to have a look at Canon and Nikon. That's what I've been doing. Okay, so let's say Canon. Okay, they're still only a couple of percentage points behind Sony, and in Canon's defense, Canon aren't chasing short-term volume. They're protecting long-term loyalty. And what we mean by that is Canon photographers, they often talk about color science, skin tones, and files that just work straight out of the camera. That matters to wedding and portrait photographers and commercial photographers who want consistency. And Canon are very, very, very consistent as well. And that's one of the good things. That's one of the things that keeps Canon users with Canon. And they've also got with their RF mount as well. They're very tight control over their RF mount. It's not just about profits. Okay. So their lenses aren't open out to all third-party brands, are they?
That's correct.
Okay. So that makes a difference as well.
I think that will change though, because they are progressively opening it out a lot more. But
yeah, and Canon dominates in professional support. Repair turnaround times, loan gear, and professional services are the strongest in the industry.
I would actually like to say, I mean, it didn't go to Canon. It went to Thomas Repairs, well-known repairs. But I had to take my Canon in before Christmas. It had a wobbly hot shoe adapter. It came in, and it was before Christmas. And I remember you, Cam, saying, "Oh, if you need to borrow mine, in January, blah blah blah." I got it back before Christmas as well. I mean, I think it was a week and a half. It went away, got fixed, came back. I mean, it cost me nearly 300 quid, mind, but for a wobbly hot shoe adapter, but quick, really quick.
But quick, that's right. Yeah, and that's one of the things in sort of a bit of research. That's what that is a big thing. Now, the other thing is, remember DSLR. We're only talking about mirrorless here. Now, Canon, they've still got one of the largest DSLR bases in the world. So photographers haven't left Canon and moved to Sony, made Sony the most popular. It's just that they haven't moved to mirrorless. They're still using Canon DSLR. Okay,
that's something to be said as well.
Yeah. So from Canon's point of view, in their defense, let's just say in their defense, they can say they've got long-term users, and a lot of the Canon users are still on DSLR. And once if they all moved over to mirrorless, then you'd probably find Canon would be in front. So
I think so. I mean, this is just my ignorance, and I don't really know. This might be a really stupid question. Did Sony ever do DSLRs?
They did, but not that many.
Were they SLTs? SLT? Is that what I got that right?
There was something, wasn't there? Yeah, there were Sony DSLRs, but nobody really. You can't name a classic Sony DSLR, can you? Nikon, Canon, Pentax, Olympus. They
weren't really in the game, were they? They weren't.
They weren't.
No. So they did a lot of video cameras, and they did a lot of. I think they did some bridge cameras as well, didn't they? and then talking late 90s. I was just trying to remember what I was selling at Jessop's at the time. So there was the sort of the small tape video recorders, and compact cameras. That's the word I was looking for. But
Compact cameras, yeah.
but I don't remember any DSLRs.
No, you as I was saying, you would know with Nikon and Canon, wouldn't you? So
Yeah.
I mean, look at Nikon and Canon's retro range, right? They're fantastic, aren't they? You don't see
Love
any
it.
Sony retro range cameras.
No,
Yeah,
that's
but
very
what
true.
about Nikon? What about Nikon? Now, when I was researching some of this, one of the things that Nikon says somewhere that I read somewhere is that they build cameras for photographers who deeply care about the shooting experience. Okay, and it says their ergonomics, physical controls, viewfinders, and image quality, especially dynamic range, are key strengths for Nikon. And for landscape, wildlife, and studio photographers, Nikon files are still widely respected, which they should be. Nikon has also built one of the strongest mirrorless lens lineups in terms of optical quality. Fewer lenses, but some of them are genuinely exceptional. Now, as far as ergonomics are concerned, I think Sony come bottom for me for ergonomics. Okay, that was one of the reasons why I stopped using the Sonys, because they are ergonomic. They are not ergonomically friendly. I must admit that they have become more ergonomically friendly, but the Sony A7 II, the A7 III, and the 373S or something were not good. They weren't good cameras to pick up and handle. They were not comfortable in your hands. I think Nikon and Canon knocked the socks off Sony, in my opinion, for ergonomics. I don't know how you guys feel. Robert, you've had that experience with Sony, haven't you?
Yeah, I quite liked. I used a Sony A7 III for quite a few years, and yeah, we could talk a bit longer about my experience with that camera. It was a bit of love-hate, but the image quality was amazing, and I did actually quite like the look and feel of that camera. But I have to admit, yeah, I agree that it wasn't the most sort of ergonomically pleasing, if you like. It didn't fit around your hand very nicely, but I still liked it. It still felt like a real like high quality bit of kit. It was like solid. It was, it was a bit of a slab, if you like a rectangular slab, though no real shape for your hand and that sort of thing. And they got better with that. But I still liked it for that reason. But I know, Cam, you didn't quite enjoy that. It was harder on your hands, wasn't it? It sort of
definitely. There's like a sharp edge to it. Yeah. It's like a sharp edge to it. It did not have the rounded corners that Canon and Nikon definitely had. Probably Canon, a little bit more than Nikon, but Canon and Nikon.
I mean, a strange thing to ask on this, though. Is this also something to do with the fact that, Cam, you've been a photographer for a very, very long time, using film cameras, knowing the ergonomics. Rob, when you got your Sony camera, I mean, how long had you been a professional photographer at that point?
Oh, I don't know, Cam. How long would you say? I got that in 2018. I think I got that. So
you'd been shooting for a long time. You'd been shooting for a good,
but not as long as you, Cam.
No.
And you'd have probably used a lot of Nikons. You'd have been using the Hasselblads. You'd have been using all these. So you kind of. So I wonder if there's a sort of I can't think of another word, but ignorance and youth when it comes to ergonomics, and I don't mean that in any nasty way towards you, Rob. But my point is, we're used to holding a lot of older cameras, the film cameras, which was very about ergonomics, and they were generally a bit bigger, whereas you didn't have that, so maybe it didn't bother you as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What I would say is, no, I totally get where you're coming from, and when I was using my Nikon cameras, you could turn the lights off, and I could work that camera in pitch black and not have to see what the dials were and what the functions were. I couldn't do that on the Sony, so I don't know if that gives you. I still, like I said, I still enjoyed the Sony and how it looked and felt, but I fully appreciate and understand the criticism of the ergonomics of it, if you like. I couldn't operate that in pitch black necessarily.
Now, I was saying that when Nikon came in at 15.5% of the sales for mirrorless cameras. And then I went on to say that Canon users, they've obviously got all the DSLR and they're keeping the DSLRs, haven't all switched to mirrorless, they haven't upgraded yet. And I think Nikon users are probably even more so. That's even more so the case for Nikon users, because you know what it's like when you speak to photographers that have got Nikon, and they'll say, well, I've still got my D810, I've still got my D750, and some can go back further than that. They're hanging on to those DSLRs because they're such good cameras. So they're saying, well, why do I need to change to mirrorless? A lot of people don't know why don't feel the need to change to mirrorless. And we're not going to go into the difference between DSLR and mirrorless here
Mirrorless,
now.
no.
But we're just saying that
It's like petrol to EV, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right? Yeah, a lot of people, so I think, I mean, I bought I always forget what it's called, the retro Nikon. I just bought it recently.
The ZFC,
yeah. The ZFC, right? And I mean, that's such a sexy looking camera. Okay, and now Canon still haven't brought theirs out yet. They were going to bring out their retro, weren't they? I can't remember which one it was.
Yes,
the A1.
The A1.
Is it the A1?
Yeah, it is the A1.
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't know if that's what they're calling it, but it's based on the A1.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Now those cameras, they look fantastic. And
actually, here's a question though. Yeah. Ergonomically, though, the grip. Because there is no grip on those, is there? Because the old FM2 didn't have that grip, did it?
No, it didn't. But you see, this is just it. On my ZFC, when I bought it, and I bought it used, it came, I can't remember, I haven't got it here with me, but it came with an attachment with a curved grip on it.
With the curved
just
grip.
Screws into the bottom, which makes it even more, it makes it even nicer to use.
And I guess the other thing to think about with Sony is a lot of videographers use Sony cameras, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's
right. I think that's probably where they got their big, strong footing, if you like, as well, was the video side.
And that's where that's where I still use, Sony in video. But but bringing it back, I want to come back to the sales data now, because we've said a little bit we've said a bit in defense about Nikon and Canon there. But the information that comes from BCN says tracking point of sale data from around 40 to 60% of Japanese retailers. These aren't online opinions; they're purchasing decisions. But Sony's lead is real, but it's not uncontested. It's also very, very close. Canon is betting on loyalty and professional trust. Nikon is betting on purity of experience and image quality. So they have their reasons. But Sony, I guess, there's a lot of choice within the Sony range, probably more so than ever before. But I've got a question for both of you now. That if you were both going to start from scratch with no emotional attachment at all, would you choose? Which brand would you choose?
I have no idea.
Mark, I was going to say, before Mark say, well, I've always been a Canon user.
No, right? But I wasn't going to say that.
He definitely was.
No. I mean, I've actually used many different brands. My first camera was a Pentax. I also used Nikon for a long time. I've used Bronica and, of course, Canon. So I haven't just been a one brand man,
You were going to say something else then, weren't you?
but let's
one brand. Well, I can't say it. One brand banker.
One brand band. I don't know.
One brand banker.
So let's not bring medium format Bronica or Hasselblad into this. At the end of the day, we're really talking about Canon, Sony, and Nikon, aren't we? Yes, you've got Olympus, you've got Leica, and all of that as well. But these three brands, because if you were going to change camera brand, you would, hands down, you would choose one of those. You're not going to turn up with an Olympus, are you? With all due respect to Olympus, you're not going to turn around.
I might go Fujifilm, a decent offering.
Actually, Fujifilm's coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is. But my opinion with the Fujifilm cameras is I think you've got to really know how to use them. I've had students that have brought Fujifilm cameras into classes, and they're very manual. That's what I found with them. Very manual, which is fine if you know what to do with it. But I think if you're a first time user, if you're thinking I want to get into photography or I need to buy a camera, I wouldn't recommend Fujifilm. I think Fujifilm is great if you know how to use a camera. Then brilliant. Okay. But I think you would go Sony, Canon, or Nikon. But
I think I'd go Sony. Right. I'd go Sony now.
Let's have the answer to the question. Sony, would you?
I'd go back to Sony. Yeah, I'd go back to Sony. I missed my Sony
first time. I don't know, is my honest. You have to check out all the cameras, ergonomics, and all that kind of stuff. I guess what we're trying to say is the brand Sony is massive, and it's across lots of different types of products. So you would probably go Sony. I think is the angle there, isn't it? But I don't know.
Come on, Mark. Come on, you got to give us something.
No, I can't because I do know what I know. Well, Sony, you would be looking at a Sony, wouldn't you? You would be looking at a Sony. But I'd have to try out all the cameras first to know.
So interestingly enough, I would go for either Canon or Nikon. I would not go for a Sony. I just wouldn't.
If
I
you
wouldn't
didn't
go
know
for a
what you
Sony.
know,
No, knowing with what you know, I'm not saying it says with no emotional
right? I thought,
attachment.
All
yeah,
I'm
no
hearing is
emotion.
lots of different no variations.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can't go with
this-
emotional
this
attachment.
question's changing a lot.
If I know
No,
what you
no,
know,
no.
you know what I
Like
know.
I said, if you were starting from scratch today with no emotional
Yeah, so from
attachment,
scratch, so you don't know what you know then, do you?
No, well, starting from no, well, let's
So I
say
think,
with
well, I
no,
suppose the question really is then,
with
Cam, is
no
if you
emotional
didn't,
attachment.
because I suppose a lot of what's keeping you perhaps, Mark, locked into the Canon ecosystem, if you like, is because obviously that's where a lot of in recent years your experiences and your kit is, like your lenses and so on.
Yeah.
So if you weren't like tied down by your previous kit and you didn't want to sort of have to sell it,
right, okay.
if you could come in fresh, pick a new brand, would you consider moving from Canon to a different brand?
I'd go. Yeah, that sounds better. Okay, I'd go Canon or Nikon. I wouldn't go Sony. Yeah.
I also find for me the other reason for that is I still don't find Sony ergonomically friendly, and they are better than they were, but also their menu system is the most confusing menu system there is out there. Robert, you can underline that fact. You'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was a bit convoluted, but
it's ridiculous.
But they have changed it now. They have simplified it a bit. Yeah. In recent cameras, they have changed it because I know that was a big criticism that stuff was all over the gaff for
yeah. I mean, I don't know who designed that menu system. It's not who designed it; it's who approved that menu system. Saying, yes, we're going with this. Yeah. I still think Nikon have the easiest menu system to understand.
But is that because we've used Nikon for so long? It's only in recent years.
No, I know. I genuinely think it is. I genuinely think it is. So anyway, that was that.
It's good to know that everything is still, the industry's still going gangbusters really at the moment, because I think we were worried for a bit, weren't we? But it seems to be, sales are back, aren't they?
Maybe we could throw that question out. It's an interesting question. Throw it out to the punters and see what they would do if they were coming in fresh, weren't tied down by kit, don't have to worry about your legacy lenses and all that sort of stuff. And would you change brand? We'll perhaps open up the episode next time with a bit of a round table, a bit of a spin on what some responses may be on that.
Maybe.
Maybe. Good idea. Good stuff. Okay, right. Mark, I'm going to let you jump in with the next one.
Yeah. So, well, before we start anything, did you know? So I'm going to ask a question. All right. And this is something I saw on TV this morning. So today is the 26th of Jan. Today marks 100 years since which major technological breakthrough? Is it the first long-distance telephone call, the first TV demonstration, or the first color photograph?
Sorry, how many years ago?
100. Today marks 100 years since which major technological breakthrough?
So it's not the photo. What were the other two again?
The first TV demonstration or the first long-distance phone call?
I reckon it's the phone call. I would say the phone call. Yeah, Rob? I would say the phone call.
I'm not sure on this one. I'm going to be a bit on the fence on this one. Is that allowed?
Yeah, you can be on the fence.
I'll be on the fence.
On the fence on the last question, wasn't I?
Hang on a minute. Actually, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. I think it's a TV one.
Yeah.
Reason being, I've got a reason for this.
And why's that?
It's got to be a photography, something visually related, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is why you're talking about it.
Yeah, so it is. Yeah. It's the first TV demonstrations 100 years ago today. And the reason I bring that up is because I've been hearing a lot of stories about how TV shows are being made. Now, I know we are the photography bar, and I know this is not particularly about photography as such, but it is about visual content, and photography is a part of that sort of visual content family. Videography, we talk about that as well. It's all very interesting what's going on because it's all based around social media and smartphones. So there's this thing called second screen viewing. Have you guys heard about that?
I have heard about this.
Yeah. So basically, second screen viewing is to simplify the plot of a TV show so the audience can follow along whilst browsing on their phone. What do you guys think to that as an idea?
Can I start on this one?
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I could use stronger words, but just put your phones down. Just put your phones down.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's nothing on your phone that's going to be that important that you can't dedicate a bit of time to well, first of all, like speaking with friends or whatever it might be, but especially for a TV show as well, like you shouldn't be on your phone in those moments. You know, it certainly shouldn't be dumbing down programming for it as well, because they're obviously not that interested anyway. So maybe just cater to the people that are interested in watching it properly, you know, and if it's strong enough, then people will follow. That's what I think anyway.
Cam, what do you reckon?
I would agree. I would agree with Robert totally. But the thing is that we've become so engrossed in our phones, haven't we? That it's almost impossible to do.
I personally think it's a problem. I mean, I read an article from The Guardian about this, so I'll be sort of dipping in and out of that. I don't want to read the whole thing out as a verbatim, but you know, one of the questions they did ask though was, is it snobbery to believe that this is wrong? And some respects of, I mean, if I'm doing the washing up, I might have a show on my iPad or something. It's generally a show I've watched before, so I can follow it because I've seen this episode a million times or something, right? But I do find it quite disturbing that the idea of reducing or simplifying a show so that we can then use our phones is almost disturbing. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing, because I don't mind if someone wants to sit back and they don't want to pay full attention, they want to scroll. You know, it's not what I would tend to do personally, but people want to do that, I've got no problem with it. But to then design content, if you like, that lovely word that we all love, around it and dumb it down, like you say, Mark, that's not good, because keep it there, you know, to produce stuff for the people that want to be your audience. If people don't want to pay full attention and scroll, then you shouldn't worry about them so much. It's like trying to sell a golf club to a skier. You know, that's perhaps not the best analogy.
A what? A golf club to what?
Well, I was just trying to say, like, they're catering to the wrong audience. You know, golf club has someone that skis, right? Because they're not your audience. You're trying to cater to someone else. Obviously, if they're not paying full attention, they're obviously not your audience. Is what I'm trying to get at. The golf club to a golfer, skis to a golfer, you know, whatever it might be. But why are you trying to grab their attention when you've got a portion of an audience here that will still pay attention? It's not everyone that's scrolling on their phones. So why are you trying to grab that but make that captive audience when they're obviously the only thing they're interested in is their phone? They're not going to be on anything else. So what does it really matter if what you're trying to achieve with it? They're going to scroll regardless. What you're trying to achieve. I don't get it. It's kind of what I'm saying. Does that make sense where I'm coming from there?
Yeah, I mean, well, the reason
give the terrible analogy, but
I mean, a lot of this has been coming from murmurings around Netflix. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this article. So it says, it isn't breaking news that Netflix panders to the casual viewer, as well as award-winning TV shows that it produces. But it has a history of telling showrunners that the scenes aren't second screen enough. In other words, if a viewer's primary screen is their phone, they shouldn't be so challenged by the Netflix show or they're on their secondary screen, i.e. the TV, that they would turn the TV off. So it's about chasing viewers who will be on their phones as well as the screen.
Do you think though that we as humans though have changed and evolved with things as they've moved on? And what I mean by that is our attention spans have got shorter, okay, because we've got so much more going on around us. We don't concentrate, and I liken it to something like listening to music. How many people of a certain age don't listen to an album these days? How they flip from one song to the next, from one artist to the next. They won't put on a whole album, by a particular artist. Okay, I think that's changed for a lot. I know for a lot of music artists, the album isn't the big thing. They release songs ad hoc, don't they? Every now and again, they'll just release something. Robert's favourite, I think Ed Sheeran does a bit of that, doesn't he?
I don't mind Ed Sheeran. I've got nothing against Ed Sheeran.
Okay, but so, and I think what I'm saying is our attention spans have changed, and also because we're doing so much more, our minds flip from one to. Do you think that we're more able to tune in to more than one thing at the same time? I can look at my phone and I can watch TV at the same time, but still be listening, still be on my phone at the same time. And
I think people are just obsessed with their phones these days. I think that's what it is. Scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through whatever they're scrolling through. Just pay attention to what you're doing.
Well, social media generally.
Do you think they are? But do you think they are paying attention? They are paying attention to both
no,
because they don't know. Because they don't know any difference.
I miss things. If I'm watching something and say something comes up on my phone and I do look at, I mean, we're all guilty of this, aren't we? I guess. And then I kind of like, oh no, I've lost. I have to rewind and then
That's the whole
carry
reason
on.
you can't use your phone and drive, right? Because you can't
Yeah,
concentrate.
absolutely
Yeah.
right. Absolutely right. And I think this is, I mean, do you think that generally we are getting so, because it's social media and online shopping is the other one, I guess, but social media, I think, is the primary reason for this. Um, but do you think it's getting a bit to the point where it's coming definitely to our detriment? So if we can't sit and watch a show without looking at our phone, I think that's a problem. But also, that recently Snapchat have started charging for their memories. Now, I'm not a Snapchat user, so I don't really understand how this works. But apparently, you take photos on Snapchat, it stores it on Snapchat, and now in order to see them, you get charged for it. You have to do a subscription, and apparently you can download the images, but you can only download 20 a day. And if you've been doing this since 2018, you've probably got thousands of images on there, right? So are we becoming too dependent on things like this?
Mm. I suppose it's the trouble, isn't it? When you've got with like Snapchat, I don't use it, but I give my 2 cents still. When you're reliant on a service like that, like if you're reliant on, say, YouTube, you're reliant on Facebook for content, or you're reliant on Snapchat in this case, you should never have that kind of all of your eggs in one basket. And if they
Yeah.
could change their terms of service at any point, they can, whatever it might be, and you can lose access to your stuff. And so you should never be solely reliant. That's kind of in my head, at least. You should never really rely solely on one platform for anything. I don't know if Snapchat's not a professional platform necessarily, is it, for anything, as far as I know? But
But if you were like a 14-year-old kid and you started doing this, you wouldn't think of that, would
I
you?
can see that. No, you wouldn't. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's definitely true. So yeah, it's hard for me to comment too much on that one, but I suppose business models change, and
Yeah.
I can see why people wouldn't like it. I suppose
Yeah.
is the answer. Yeah, I can see why no one wants to pay more for things that you had for free.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all driven by economics. Every decision that's made, that's all it comes down to.
Which then takes us back to what this idea about Netflix is doing, because it doesn't want to drop its audience to the phone. The phone will win out over a decent show or a decent, well thought, nuanced story. And I think that's depressing to me.
I wonder if, like they've got this social media ban now in Australia. I wonder if though that generation might grow up slightly different.
Well, I hope so. I mean,
and be able to tune in to something that much more. I know there are a lot of them finding ways around it. Right?
Yeah, of course they are.
I saw this article on BBC the other day, and they were talking to someone, and she was saying you find ways around it.
I would go further. I'd ban the smartphone for under 16s personally. Yeah, I know. I'm quite strict on this one. I would ban. I mean, obviously, you have your Nokias, those old school Nokias, and you can text and call and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, fine. But a smartphone, I'd probably ban that as well. Personally, probably get a bit of hate for that. I mean, but
well, no, I think
I might do.
I think there's a lot. There's a lot to be said for that. I think we see how society is changing, isn't it? But then we don't. They won't have their cameras, but will they?
No, Nokia's had cameras on, didn't they?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, but that's no good. I mean, but that could be a good thing. I think the whole selfie thing has become so. It's put people under pressure, hasn't it? So maybe if they grow up without doing it, maybe when they hit 16, it won't be such a big deal.
Exactly.
I think
compact camera sales will go back up as well. That would be a good.
So it's going to boost. That's a good. We brought it back around to photography really nicely.
Yeah. Do you like what I did?
I did. That was very good. Keeping it on brand.
I will
exactly.
I think that maybe things will go around in circles, and I think eventually that won't be the trick. Like people will say, I'm going to go for like a quiet tech approach. Like I'm not going to be. I think as generations come through, there might actually being real reliant on tech and phones won't be cool anymore. I think it might come back to the point where people will like be in the moment, and that'll be. Do you know what I mean? I could see that happening as time goes on.
I mean, I hope so. I think we're a long way from it. I mean, I do see it when we're doing the graduations, and it's like you're taking a picture of the student, and you got like. It's not like I got the bloody paparazzi behind you, taking it with all these different angles. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this? There's no need. I'm going to take a much better photo than you are, and you've already paid for it. So what's the point?
Exactly.
I will just say, in Netflix's defense, that there has been things about saying otherwise, and it would be, and it was a showrunner, a writer called Joe Barton, not to be confused with the footballer Joey
Yeah.
Barton, just to put that there.
All sorts of problems there.
Yeah, and he did say, I would be surprised if any exec was basically like, write this badly. And this guy wrote Black Doves for Netflix, which was a great show.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think there's a sort of homogenized Netflix. It's a huge company with many different departments. So that's the other side, just to keep it fair. However, I am hearing a lot of murmurs from different outbreaks that things are being simplified in order for us to be able to use our phones. And I think if I'm going to have a call to arms today, it's like, guys, put down, and ladies, of course, put down your phone and watch some awesome, because there's some brilliant shows. I mean, I remember you mentioned Yellowstone not so long ago. Obviously, Stranger Things had its final season. It was all brilliant, and it's all visually stimulating. So just put your phones down. Put your phones down.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. Now, good stuff. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about medium format.
Yeah, we will. Just want to mention, obviously, Rob's gone now. He had to go because he had a job on, didn't he? After
yes,
this.
that's right.
So we did have to go. So it's just us two now. Sorry, guys.
It is. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't that long ago when medium format cameras were the thing. You know, that time sort of moved on very, very, very quickly. But when you look back at medium format cameras, for a lot of people now, when you compare to cameras from now, they were very slow, they were expensive. And you really only bought a medium format camera if you're a commercial studio photographer or a landscape photographer with a tripod. You have to have a tripod, you have to have patience. Nobody else would consider using a medium format, but people still looked at medium format thinking, God, there's something very special about them.
Well, so back in 2005, when I first joined Venture, they used medium format cameras with a phase one back, which was tethered to the computer. And chasing 2-year-olds around with this blooming great big thing was a pain in the bum, I'm not going to lie. And I think it was about 2, maybe 3 years in, we ended up getting a Canon DSLR. It was, I think, whatever, it was I don't know, the EOS 1, whatever it was, 1D, whatever, I can't remember. So yeah, it was true. So I've got experience in the in the medium format, slow focusing, and the cumbersome of it all. But I believe that's about to change. Is that right, Cam?
Well, the thing is there was always this thing that medium format cameras were so expensive, the cost and did I really need to use one and that type of thing. But things are changing. But let's have a look at the cost for a minute. Okay, let's just have a look at the cost of the full frame brands that we've got at the moment. Right now, a Fujifilm, a GFX 100S, and that's a Mark II, you can get for around £5,500.
Okay.
A Nikon Z9, that's Nikon's flagship camera, is about £5,000.
Yeah,
give or take. And the Sony A1, that's Sony's A1. I think it's in a Mark II now, the Sony A1, but that's Sony's flagship camera. That's about £6,500, something like that, depending on where you get it from. And those are the flagship full frame cameras. Okay, but the GFX. Sorry, I meant to say the GFX camera. The GFX 100 is a medium format. What I meant to say, that comes in at about £5,000. Sony's Z9 is about the same price, and the Sony A1 is £7,000, roughly £6,500. So sorry, what I meant to say was the GFX comes in cheaper than the full frame cameras, which is really surprising. But the GFX also gives you 102 megapixels on a sensor that's about 70% larger than the full frame cameras. Okay, it's the sensors that are the main thing. So the difference that you're getting in image quality is huge. So the Fujifilm GFX 100 medium format camera is £5,500 cheaper than the Nikon Z9 or the Sony A1. Yeah. So if you're looking for quality over anything else, quality of image, why would you not go for the medium format?
Well, I think it depends in a studio, I guess, and it's for product photography, yes. I don't think the focusing systems are as good generally, so they're not as quick. And so if you are a family photographer in a studio who, as I said earlier, chasing a 2-year-old around, you need a pretty quick autofocus, right? But also lower light conditions, I don't think they work quite as well. One of the reasons why I went for the R6 over the R5 is because there's less pixels, therefore it's better in low light. And that's the same with medium format.
So that's fine. So and the Rolls Royce of cameras, we all know what is the Rolls Royce brand, don't we? Okay, as in for Hasselblad. Okay, was always.
You're going to say Leica there for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Hasselblad is always been, hasn't it? It's been there, isn't it? That's a brand. That's a medium format brand. So it's a legendary brand. But also with it's still medium format. It's difficult to pick up. It's difficult to use. You can't use it handheld. But then Hasselblad changed that when they had the X2D Mark II, I think it was 100, something like that. And they had autofocus in there. They had 10 stops of in-body stabilization. And now you could shoot handheld. Okay, you can photograph weddings with it. You can do portraits with it. You can do editorial work with it. It's not just for studio photography anymore. And
so you don't have to tether. Yeah.
So medium format suddenly becomes like usable for most people. Okay. So if you're looking at image quality, surely full frame really doesn't come into it anymore. Shouldn't come into it anymore. Why are people still saying I'm going to go for Sony, Nikon, or a Canon? I'm going to go for the Z9 when you can go for a medium format if you want portability now, which you've got, and you've got price as well.
I mean, I'm guessing lack of knowledge. So I didn't realize that medium formats had progressed quite so well in digital. Are they mirrorless as well?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they're mirrorless as well. Okay, so that's good. I guess one of the things is, though, when it comes to price, the only thing I would sort of argue with your point there is that you're talking about flagship cameras against this medium format. Well, I haven't bought a flagship camera. I've bought the R6, which is a hell of a lot cheaper than £5,000.
Yeah.
So there is that in mind. I don't see many people on the circuit these days with the EOS 1, whatever it is, or the Z9. I think I've seen a Z9. I've not seen an A1 used by anyone. I haven't. In the circuit that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and we see a lot of photographers.
We see a lot of photographers.
We see a lot of photographers, and not a single one has got the Sony A1.
No, and I've not seen the Canon EOS 1 either. Yeah. As I say, we know Steve, who has the Z9. But.
And Malcolm. And give a shout out to Malcolm.
Oh, yeah, and Malcolm.
Yeah, Malcolm listens.
Yeah.
One of our listeners, Malcolm.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't think that's a fair comparison because not many people spend that sort of money really on cameras. They spend more around the $2,000 mark, perhaps.
But I think you got it right when you said it's lack of knowledge. I think people are aware. Yeah. They see these medium format cameras and they just, whoa, that's not, I'm out of my league here. That's not for me. I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'm not going to spend that much money. But you don't really know how much it's costing. Things are definitely shifting. There are now wedding photographers that are using the GFX cameras. Editorial teams are using medium format cameras as well. Rental houses are stocking more bodies as well. Things are changing, and medium format is losing its mystique.
It is.
That's how. So things are changing.
But why would you want to take a picture on a medium format camera though these days?
The thing is, look, the sensor is 70% larger. You're getting 110 megapixels. Okay, so I'm talking about if you are so obsessed with image quality, or basically your images are going to be blown up and being put onto billboards and using high advertising. It makes no difference to wedding photographer. There's no wedding photographer. Right? If a wedding photographer came to me and said, you have to shoot, I shoot weddings with medium format, your customers will never know. And if you say, well, I'm just doing it for myself because of image quality, I have to be honest, I don't know whether I'd be able to tell whether an image was shot on, unless it was blown up so big.
Well, we've just been speaking about how many people, the phone usage and how we consume things is really on a phone and social media and all that kind of stuff. You're definitely not going to see the difference between a medium format and a DSLR or even an APS-C or even someone's phone picture on social media and online because the resolution of your screen isn't big enough, right? So this is really about printing. Now, I remember I went quickly to medium format pretty quickly because I loved the idea of being able to print big and have these sort of mural kind of images. In fact, my whole degree project in the last year was all on murals, and I went up to 5.4 in the end, right? So that was what I was obsessed with. But with digital and professional, with the work that I do, I can't see why you would need that. Now, one of our patrons, Rob Percy, who's been on the show a couple of times, might be listening to this going, but what about copy photographers? You always talk about weddings and all this, but what about the people who are copying, paintings or whatever, copying photographers? Yeah, I can see it for that. I can. Do you need it more than the DSLR? I don't know. Maybe see, Rob, maybe comment on this and see what you think.
I mean, my sort of thing for that is what's going to be the end result? What are you shooting? Why are you shooting it? And where is it going to be viewed? And does the quality of your camera, is the quality of the camera that you've got, whatever it is, does it meet the needs of the outcome? Right? Will it achieve the outcome, what you're actually looking to do? That's really all it comes down to. A wedding does not need to be shot on medium format. And I shot it was 2009. I stopped shooting medium format at weddings on film.
Was that out of film?
Right.
But would you, if you were taking a picture of a bride and groom with your medium format and took that same picture with your 35mm and printed a 10x8, I would argue you would be able to see the difference in the print quality between a 35mm and a 645 or a 67. And you printed a 10x8 off it through an enlarger. We're talking film here. I think you would notice the difference in their eyes and in the detail of the hair.
I don't know. I would have to go back and revisit it and do a test now.
That might be interesting to do,
Right? I would have to do a test now to see what it was like. I've told you this story, haven't I? Where we had a representative from Hasselblad come into our office going back a few years ago with a Hasselblad. It was one of their new digital cameras. And I know I've mentioned this on the podcast, but it's a long time ago. And I was interested in hiring it for a shoot. And he bought the camera, opened the case, went through it, blah, blah. This camera was about £35,000 back then, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, he left it with us. He said, hang on to it for a couple of days. I'll come and pick it up. And it's like, are you sure about this? Right. And he left it with us for a couple of days. And then he came back and picked it up and took it. It was bizarre. It really was. And, I didn't actually get to even use it that much, which was because we were so busy doing stuff.
Too scared to bloody use it.
We did use it. That's right. Yeah. But anyway, just to sort of finish off on this, because some people are going to be saying, well, I shoot full frame. It's good enough for me. First of all, is you don't need to go to medium format. If you shoot sports, wildlife, weddings, most stuff, you don't need to go to medium format. Full frame cameras have extremely the best extreme burst rates. If you want to deliver thousands of images at speed, then full frame still makes sense. It's easy. But for portraits, landscape, architecture, and editorial, things are starting to possibly shift. Medium format autofocus works brilliantly. The stabilization works. The prices are so competitive. And also the tripod era is over. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't need to use a tripod. Okay.
The only thing I would
it's escaped the studio now. It's a format that only was to be used in the studio, or if it had to be outdoors, and again, it had to be, on a tripod. But now? I'm going to put it out there. Go on, you say this.
I was just going to say, I just wanted to go a couple of things. I still disagree with you about the competitive pricing thing because I just don't think it is, considering what we said about what most models people use. Okay, they don't use the high end flagship models. But also, I was just going back to, I think you could tell the difference on film if you printed out a 10x8 between a medium format and a 35mm. I think you could tell the difference.
Are you talking about? When you say 35mm? Are you talking about? You're not talking about a full frame digital camera. You're talking
no. I'm talking about film. When I was talking about film about 5 minutes ago.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Right. Oh no, hands down.
Okay.
Hands
so
medium
if
format.
You print, if you printed out a 10x8
Yeah.
with a medium format film camera and a 35mm film camera, you would be able to tell the difference on that print, I
Oh,
think,
easily,
without a shadow of a
easily,
doubt, right?
easily.
And
Yeah.
that was how we consumed images back then, right? When I
Yes.
was
Yeah.
just all about 5:4 and 6:45
Yeah.
and all that. That's what I was about, right?
Yeah.
These days, though, we consume through screens mostly, right? So
Yeah.
if you were to take a picture with a full frame R6, let's use my camera R6 against this medium format camera, and you looked at it on the screen, which is how we consume images, you would not tell the difference.
No,
You
you're
wouldn't be
right.
able to. You
Exactly.
wouldn't be able
You
to.
wouldn't be.
So for me, I think for that reason alone, digital medium format cameras are not as relevant as their film predecessors were.
No.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. And I want to finish off by saying that with this happening in medium format, people becoming more and more aware of it. Are we seeing the end of the mirrorless camera
No.
at full frame? That's
No.
all right. And that's
For the reasons I just said, I think. Sorry, I probably
that's
probably should let you
that's
ask that question first. But
yeah. Yeah. That's where I was going to finish off by just throwing
Yeah.
it out there when we're saying to everyone, go to mirrorless, you got to go mirrorless. Or hang on a minute, should you not be going medium format? I don't think that is the case. People want compact, don't they?
Yeah, they're still bigger units, aren't they? No matter
Oh,
how
yeah,
compact and
definitely.
portable they will
Yeah.
make them, it just by the law of
Yeah.
physics, really, you got a bigger
Yeah.
sensor, it's going to be a bigger camera,
Yeah.
isn't it? So
Yeah. And it'll
there's
continue to be the same. And I know I don't mean it to sound snobbish, but I quite like the fact that there's cameras that are there that are another level up. Do you know what I mean?
I do
Right?
know what you mean.
The
The
and I'm not using
hierarchy.
medium format now, right?
No.
But I do like the fact that they're there, they're up there, right? There's
Can you
photographers
get-
out there using them. I think it's great.
And I've never looked at this, but can you get 5:4 digital cameras? I don't think you can. Can you get 10:8 and
Do you know,
5:4
I don't know. I think they
sensors?
just you can do, but it's been years since when I stopped using film, I never went back to large
No.
format. Didn't really need to.
No.
So don't
That-
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
That's the one thing we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know
Yeah.
everything. I mean,
That's
some
right,
might
yeah.
say we don't know a lot, but
No, exactly. That's right. Yeah. Good stuff.
Anyway,
Thank you guys. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for everyone for listening in today. I hope you enjoyed it and we didn't ramble on too much. Please don't forget to subscribe to all our things you subscribe to. We've also got a Patreon site. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You've got the YouTube channel. We're on Spotify. But yeah, please do subscribe and like to all of those. We do need to say thank you to our patrons. So a big thank you to Frank Case, Amira Zainab, Carl Sherville, Rob Percy, Craig Chuck, Emily Brown, and Nick Payne. I'm looking forward to speaking to you again next time.
Good stuff. Thank you guys. Cheers.